When people hear the word single, they often associate it with loneliness, emptiness, or the lack of something essential. But this perception is only born from an unawakened mind, a mind that seeks fulfillment outside of itself. When you begin to awaken spiritually, you realize that solitude is not a punishment, it is a sacred space. It is not emptiness, but fullness, because in that silence you meet the truth of who you are. When Master SHI says you cannot walk the path for someone else and no one can walk it for you, this is the essence of why staying single becomes a powerful choice for the spiritually awake. It's not a rejection of love, it's a redirection of energy toward understanding love in its purest form. To be spiritually awake is to be aware that everything in life is vibration, and your energy is constantly influenced by the people you allow close to you. Relationships, while beautiful, can often pull you into patterns of attachment, expectations, and emotional noise. When you are single, you learn to master your energy, to refine your emotions, and to see yourself clearly without interference. Solitude becomes your dojo, your spiritual training ground. It's where you learn discipline, self-control, patience, and inner peace. Most people fear being alone because they have never truly met themselves. They run from silence because in silence the ego starts to dissolve. The awakened soul, however, runs toward it. You begin to understand that being single gives you time to cleanse your energy, to listen deeply to the universe, to move at your own rhythm. It's where distractions fade and awareness sharpens. In the stillness of your solitude, you begin to see how the mind reacts, how the heart feels, and how the spirit communicates. You see your wounds, your triggers, and your desires, not to judge them, but to understand and transform them. When you are no longer chasing someone to complete you, you finally have space to become complete within yourself. The spiritually awake man or woman realizes that relationships built from emptiness lead to dependency, but relationships built from wholeness lead to expansion. And this wholeness can only be cultivated through periods of being alone. You start to see solitude not as isolation, but as alignment. It's the phase where you strip away illusions, detach from unhealthy attachments, and ground yourself in truth. The universe often separates the awakened from the crowd so they can remember their power, refine their purpose, and reconnect with their higher self. That's why the path of the spiritually awake is often a solitary one, not because they are antisocial, but because their soul demands purification. In your aloneness, you are not lonely. You are in the presence of something divine. You are being prepared. You are being shaped. You are learning the language of silence, the wisdom of patience, and the strength of inner calm. When the world sees emptiness, the awakened one sees sacred space, and that is the true power of staying single. When you walk the path of spiritual awakening, you begin to understand that solitude is not simply about being without people. It is about being without distractions. The reason spiritually awakened people often stay single is because they no longer seek validation through others. They no longer chase temporary connections to fill eternal voids. Instead, they seek alignment with truth, peace, and their higher purpose. When you awaken, the world does not change immediately, but your perception of it does. You start to see that most relationships are not built on consciousness, but on conditioning. People come together not because of deep soul resonance, but because of emotional dependency, fear of loneliness, or societal pressure. The awakened one sees through this illusion. They understand that love without awareness turns into attachment, and attachment turns into suffering. So, instead of seeking someone to share the pain with, they focus on dissolving the pain itself. This requires deep inner work, something that can only be done in silence. In relationships built on unconsciousness, people often lose themselves. They bend their energy to fit another person's expectations. They compromise their truth. They silence their intuition, and they call it love. But the spiritually awake person refuses to do this anymore. They understand that losing yourself to please another is not love, it is self-abandonment. Therefore, they choose solitude over self-betrayal. This is why staying single becomes not a sign of loneliness, but of wisdom. Solitude gives you space to observe your patterns. You begin to notice how you used to chase attention, when what you truly needed was self-acceptance. You realize that peace does not come from being chosen by someone else. It comes from choosing yourself. You learn to sit with your emotions, to heal your wounds without projecting them onto another. This deep introspection transforms you. It strengthens your spirit, sharpens your intuition, and expands your awareness. The longer you stay alone, the clearer your energy becomes. You start to feel what is right for your soul and what is not. You begin to recognize that love without growth is just comfort, and comfort often leads to stagnation. When you are spiritually awake, you cannot stay in situations that limit your vibration. You crave freedom, not the kind of freedom that runs from connection, but the kind that allows you to love without losing your center. You start to understand that true connection begins within. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and solitude is where you refill it. It is where you discover your worth without needing external confirmation. This is why the spiritually awakened person values silence over superficial talk, peace over chaos, and solitude over forced connection. They walk alone not because they are cold or detached, but because they are devoted to truth. And only in truth can love be pure. Only in solitude can a soul truly evolve. When a person reaches spiritual awakening, they begin to see that most relationships in the modern world are built not on harmony, but on fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of being unloved, the fear of not being enough. But the awakened man or woman no longer operates from fear. They have touched a deeper truth, and that truth makes it difficult to settle for anything less than authentic connection. Staying single becomes a sacred act of protection, not from others, but from one's own past tendencies to attach unconsciously. They understand that every person they allow into their space has an influence on their vibration. Energy is real. When you spend time with someone, your energies merge. You absorb their thoughts, emotions, and even their unresolved pain. The awakened person becomes very careful with whom they share their energy. They realize that peace is expensive, and they refuse to trade it for fleeting companionship. This does not mean they are against love. It means they no longer confuse attachment for love. True love does not drain, it expands. It does not demand, it allows. It does not control, it liberates. The spiritually awake person knows this difference, and that is why they would rather wait years for a soul connection than rush into relationships built on loneliness. Their silence becomes their teacher. Their solitude becomes their sanctuary. In that quiet space, they reconnect with their own essence, with nature, with the present moment. They start to find beauty in simplicity, the sound of the wind, the rhythm of their breath, the stillness between thoughts. This level of awareness cannot be maintained if they are constantly entangled in emotional drama. Many people think being single is emptiness, but for the awakened one, it is fullness. It is a state of inner completeness where nothing needs to be added. They do not crave someone to fill a gap because there is no gap. They understand that to share love, one must first become love. They begin to move differently, more consciously, more slowly, more intentionally. They speak less but feel more. They are not impressed by appearances or promises. They look for energy that matches peace. This is why many spiritually awakened people seem distant. They are not cold, they are clear. They have walked through their inner chaos and learned the price of peace. You have tasted that kind of silence. The noise of superficial connections no longer tempts you. You begin to prefer deep solitude over shallow company. You begin to value energetic alignment over emotional excitement. Staying single becomes a spiritual discipline, a way of keeping your vibration pure and your purpose unhindered. The awakened one does not need a partner to feel whole, because wholeness is already their natural state. They know that the right soul will find them when both are equally free, equally conscious, equally awake. Until then, they walk alone, not in loneliness, but in liberation. The truth is, staying single as a spiritually awakened person is not an escape, It is a form of preparation. It is the time when your soul sharpens itself, when your mind learns stillness, and when your heart becomes clear enough to recognize real love when it arrives. Many people misunderstand this stage. They think the awakened person avoids love or is afraid of it. But that is not true. The awakened one simply refuses to settle for imitation. They understand that what most people call love is often attachment disguised as affection, dependency disguised as connection. And so they wait. They do not chase, they do not beg, they do not force anything, they trust divine timing. They understand that the universe brings people together not when they want, but when they are ready to meet from wholeness, not from emptiness. That is why solitude is sacred. It gives space for healing. It allows one to see all the patterns that once attracted the wrong kind of love. It teaches emotional independence, the ability to sit with yourself and not feel lonely. It teaches you how to enjoy your own presence, how to be your own peace, your own validation, your own safe space. Once you have mastered that, no one can manipulate you through fear of abandonment. You stop clinging to people who disturb your peace because you realize that peace itself is love. You stop confusing comfort with connection. You stop needing others to understand you because you have finally understood yourself. When a spiritually awakened person chooses to stay single, they are aligning themselves with truth rather than illusion. They start to feel the presence of something greater guiding them, an intelligence beyond the mind, a flow beyond the ego's desires. This inner knowing whispers, not everyone is meant to walk with you. It reminds them that some paths are meant to be walked alone so that they can become strong enough to carry the light that others will one day need. The awakened man or woman becomes like a mountain, still, grounded and unshaken. From a distance, it may look lonely at the top, but in reality, that solitude is full of clarity, full of awareness. In that quiet elevation, they see the world differently. They no longer seek validation. They no longer depend on others to mirror their worth. They have become their own mirror. They have become whole. And when love finally appears, not as a distraction, but as a mirror of the same inner peace, it does not shake them. It complements them. It does not take them away from their path. It walks beside them in silence. That is the beauty of staying single when spiritually awake. You learn to love without losing yourself, to give without needing, and to walk alone without feeling incomplete. Because the awakened soul knows solitude is not emptiness, it is fullness, it is strength, it is the space where divine love finally finds you, not because you are searching for it, but because you have become it.